Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Fantasy Football Three-Way, brought to you by FantasyDonks.com, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know to start playing daily fantasy sports. I'm Sean Big Papa Williams.
I'm Jamie the Learjet Lear.
And as you can see, we're without one Chris Murr, which means it's more of a fantasy twosome tag team, if you will, versus a fantasy three-way. But we'll get you all the information that we normally break down for you for the Week 13 action. Unlucky Week 13, but hopefully we'll make it lucky with our breakdown.
That's right.
We'll start off with Lear's breakdown of the Jets at the Giants. It's a 45 over-under, with the Jets are currently favored by 2 points. Lear, what does this game look like for some fantasy goodness?
All right, man. So the whole state of New York is definitely interested in this game, with it being the Jets at the Giants at the Meadowlands. Jets are coming off a nice home win against Miami this past week in Week 12. Goodness all around. They scored 38 points in the victory. Excuse me. Ryan Fitzpatrick is 5,200 this week. He threw for 4 touchdowns and almost 300 yards in the last game. He has a sweet matchup again this week against the 31st ranked defense against the pass and the Giants. His cost is amazing for a guy who has a floor of basically 17 points, but has a ceiling that he could easily get over 30. So in my personal opinion, I think he's a must start this week for sure at his price point.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Chris Ivory's 5,900, coming off of a decent performance of 18.2 points against Miami. Bilal Powell is 3,000. He only scored 5 points last week, and kind of a dumpster if you picked him.
Yeah, let me down majorly. I thought he was going to get some good catching points last week.
But not worth much again this week, I think. So he's pretty much an avoid there, even though he is min value. And then you've got Mr. Brandon Marshall, 7,100. Had a monster week last week, 37.1 points. Must own to take down a GPP last week for sure. He has a nice matchup again this week. But will not perform as the same as last week, as many points as I don't think, but will still have a pretty good week. I expect him to have a ceiling of about 25 points, which is still good at his price point. And he's not really crazy expensive either, like the Odells or the Julios. So, but has just as much potential to score the same amount of points. But one crazy thing that I found out about Marshall doing some research this week is he's never scored below double digits at one single game this week or this season with the Jets, which is crazy. And then you've got Eric Decker, 6,300. He had a decent week with a touchdown reception, but it's still not had his blow-up week yet this season. He's also never scored below double digits in fantasy points either this season, so kind of crazy coming from both of those wide receivers. But look for him to have a great game, especially for his value at his price point. Even though he's jumped up about $500 since last week, no other wide receiver targets or legit tight ends worth a roster spot here besides those guys. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. The problem that we've been having with Decker and with B. Marsh is that they don't seem to get to that 5x 3-point salary that you want. Like, you want your players' points to hit the 5x mark. So in other words, if they're targeted $7,000, you want them to put up 35 points. And unfortunately, even though neither one of them crap on you by going below 10, neither one of them actually pay off their salary on a consistent basis. I do love them both as fill-ins. Like, if you have 6,300 and you're looking for a guy like Eric, because both of them have the ability to drop 30-plus burgers anytime. It's just, unfortunately, we haven't seen them do that to this point in the season. But hopefully this game would be one of those where they can do it. I actually like both sides of this game. You're getting into the other juicy side right now in the Giants. So.
Yeah. As far as that goes, if you had to choose between one or two, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, I actually like Decker this week over Marshall. I think New York Giants are going to be concentrating a lot on Marshall.
Yeah, so. Especially at 800 cheaper,
Yeah. So as far as the Giants side of this, Giants were sluggish pretty much the entire game last week. It was very disappointing if you watched any of that game. They did not score any points until 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So credit to the Washington defense on that one. But Eli Manning, he's 6,500. He scored 20 points still, even though he didn't start scoring points until 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But the run game, as far as Shane Vereen at 4,200, Rashard Jennings at 3,600, just all around avoid on both of those guys.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna think about it. And then you've got Mr. Odell Beckham Jr. With another just unbelievable catch last week in the end zone there. He's at $8,900. He also had a monster game last week. He's got a good matchup again with the Jets, 25th ranked pass defense. And if Revis is out again this week due to injury, he's definitely a guy that you have to put in some lineups without a doubt. Some of the other targets here that you're going to see for remaining are Ruben Randall, who's 3,900. He had a touchdown last week, but that's all he had was one catch for a touchdown. And then this is a guy that I really like this week. We'll talk more in depth about him, but Will Tye, the tight end for the Giants at 2,500. He's definitely a sneaky play this week. He's scored double digits in his last 2 consecutive games. He's got potential to put up a 20-burger, and at 2,500 would be a good play this week. So
I
definitely think he's got that potential.
Yeah, he's a great source of value. He can get it done for you. I really like both sides of this game. I think game flow with both of them being defense optional teams for the most part.
Yeah.
We couldn't say that earlier in the season about the Jets, but that Jets defense has fallen apart. And if the Giants, if we have good Eli, which we didn't get good Eli until the fourth quarter last week, but if we get good Eli from the beginning of this game, Eli and Fitzy should throw back and forth on each other.
Yeah.
Should be a shootout. But you never know, especially with the rivalry team in the Giants Jets. It may turn into a running affair.
I could possibly see this where you've got the Jets running the ball with Ivory, and then Eli Manning. Obviously, they know they don't have a running game, so they're going to be throwing the ball most times. So I'm betting the Jets would, if they get up at all, especially even by 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns, they're just going to keep running the crap out of it.
Right, which is really what cuts Powell's potential here, is because the only way the Jets are going to use Powell is if they're playing from behind.
Yeah.
And we found that out last week. So, I think that's a great analysis on this game, and I think there's a lot of fantasy goodness. Some of the guys are a little bit overpriced for my liking.
Yeah.
But, I think that transitions us into with overpriced guys into another game that's fairly similar in my opinion. The Falcons at the Bucs. I'll be breaking this one down for you. It's a 46-point over-under, and Tampa Bay is currently favored by 1.5 points. Guys, I'm going to be completely honest. This is the game I went back and forth with before I wrote the breakdown, while I was writing the breakdown, and I'm still going back and forth on the game now. And I've got lineups with Bucs and Falcons, lineups without, and we'll talk a little bit about that here. The reason why I'm so torn about this is because here's what you start doing. Is you look at the Falcons, and you know that they suck. I mean, seriously, look at their game log. Only once out of the last six games have they done anything. That one time, though, just happens to be against this Buccaneers team.
Right.
And they didn't just do a little something; they went ham.
They did a lot of something.
Yes. The last time they played the Bucs, they got 395 yards through the air and 101 on the ground for a grand total of 496 yards. They almost crossed the 500-yard mark against this team. So it really is up to your gut and up to your instinct of whether or not you want to play Matty Ice and Julio, and I'll get more into that stack in just a second, or if you want to just avoid it and say that that's an anomaly, that they really are a pile of crap. I think you kind of have to, if you're putting together multiple lineups, go down both roads, unfortunately. I would love to be able to say fade Falcons, but let's just look at the prices and what they did last time. Matty Ice, 6,700, put up 25 points last game against the Bucs, and that was with an interception. But see, he put up 11 points last week, and that's terrible in kill rosters.
Yes.
The thing is that makes it really interesting is if most people are looking to his recency and going with the 1 out of 6 weeks they've been, the only time they've been good, his ownership percentage may be really low. And I mean, the opportunity to get a guy that could go 25 plus points in this matchup for a sub 5% ownership percentage, that may be extremely sexy. You add to that Julio Jones is $9,000. He's the most expensive and almost $1,000 more expensive than any other player on the board. But there's a reason for that. Last time he played this Bucs team, he put up the dirty 30 on him, going for 36 total points in a 12-catch, 162-yard performance. Tammy is also in play here at 3,700. And yeah, he put together a crapper last week, but the week he played the Bucks, he dropped 29.3 points against them. Like, owning these three players, had you owned them 3 weeks ago, they would have started your core off with 90.58 fantasy points. That's enough to get you auto into the cash as long as you get anywhere on three players.
Three guys.
Right? Like, if the rest of your team averages that same point total, you'll hit the 300-point mark, which is good enough to take down the crazy week that we saw in fantasy this year. So that's why I have to put together a couple of these stacks and lineups and just roll with it. They just tuned up this team the last time they played them.
Yeah. The thing with me is, are you going to get Atlanta that plays really well against crap teams at home?
Yes.
And then goes on the road against the same crap team, but then plays like the normal Atlanta on the road?
Right.
Or are you actually going to get the team that's going to blow them out of the water?
Yeah, see, dude, this Atlanta team's so garbage, I don't know. And honestly, I think when you roll multiple lineups, I think the brink point here is 5. Like, if you're rolling 5 or more lineups, you want at least one of them to be a Matty Ice stack with Julio and Tammy, if you're going to follow that trend.
Yeah.
As far as the running back situation here goes, it's murky, and this is the easiest part of this game for me to fade without even a second thought. Freeman is 8K and is finally cleared from his concussion protocol, but there's a couple knocks on this. First of all, it took him an extra week to get clearance, which means it was a higher grade concussion than just your standard concussion, and he had problems getting clearance.
Yeah.
I never like players in those situations because all it takes is one hit and they're donesy. Not to mention, it doesn't even take a real hit happening. It just takes one of the observers on the sidelines thinking that person has a concussion. Next thing you know, they're in concussion protocol on the sidelines.
Right.
And since he just had one, he doesn't even get the leeway of testing out. If they think he has a concussion, he's donesy. At least that's how I understand the current concussion protocol in back-to-back weeks. So it's an easy fade for me there. And because he's starting, I don't want to go the other route and try to get the value running back either. With that, do you have any more opinion on the Falcons, bro?
For my money, I'm not going to, I will fade that Freeman play this week because I just don't want to take the chance.
Yeah, no,
and it costs too much money.
Yeah, I agree. Well, not to mention, dude, how many weeks did we pay up for him, and he was just doing us dirty, not getting where he should have. The other side of this equation is just as confusing to me, and the reason why is the last matchup saw the Bucs play poorly, and it meant that you didn't want any of them on your team. Matter of fact, it's one of the weeks where Winston and Dougie Fresh killed lineups that you were on, if you remember. Because Doug was on that awesome trend. He faced this team and then crapped. Yeah. Right? They've been playing so much better. Doug Martin looks like a man among boys out there running. Last week, he would have had a monster if they didn't call back the touchdown and another couple of decent runs. They got called back on ridiculous penalties. I think at 5,900, he's underpriced and makes a good running play this week. Wait, that a lot of people won't be on. I know. I'm back on the Doug Martin train. Yeah, I've been on it for 2 weeks while you were gone. But look, AP torched this defense last week. I think Doug Martin can do it again. I can do it just as easily. I think that's where you want to go. If the worry here is a little bit of game flow, but if Atlanta's the dumpster fire they've been being, Doug Martin will get all the carries he can ever handle and more. And if it does get pass-driven, I'm not really worried that Winston and Evans can't hang passing the ball, and Dougie will still get his. Right. So Winston's 5,300 and a sexy value by a quarterback. He's been heating up as of late, but wasn't that impressive last week. But he's still been a point-a-week guy. And, here's the thing. You know he has a 5-touchdown upside. He's already done it once this season. And even at his floor of 15 points, which is he's hardly ever been below it, and when he does, it's like 14.8. Yeah. He already pays off 3 times the salary, which is what you want, right? Like, you really want to go 5 times, and he has the easy ability to get to 5 times the salary.
And he has the ability to rush for a touchdown. Yes. Which most quarterbacks do not.
At 5,300, all he needs is 25 to pay off 5X. I think it's easy to get there, especially against this Falcons team. We've seen multiple other people do it. And like I said, Evans is still a target hog, 7,300. They're a great combination to own together. I don't want to guess on any of the other wide receiver weapons here. And until Austin Severian Jenkins gets cleared, which it doesn't look like he's going to at any point in this season, just forget about the tight end for this team as well. Any other analysis there?
No, man, I think you covered it well.
All right, but just know there's the possibility that the Bucs will just epically crap on you. It's the rookie quarterback scenario, and they did crap against the Steelers.
Well, and Martin was, 4 or 5 yards away from getting the 100-yard bonus
last week. Yeah,
and I mean, throw in that play that got called back. I mean, that's 2 really good, awesome weeks back to back.
That play alone is like an extra 12 points because he gets the touchdown, the bonus for the yardage, and the yardage of the play itself.
So it was huge.
Yeah. Oh, well, sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some.
Yeah.
And right now, a team that's winning a lot is the Kansas City Chiefs, and they are facing the Oakland Raiders. This line is 44 points, and currently Kansas City is a road favorite at 3 points to go into Oakland and handle business. Lear, I know there's some fantasy nuggets of goodness here.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us all about it, bro.
Well, to start off my AFC West supremacy with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Oakland Raiders, the Chiefs are coming off, obviously, a nice victory win at home against Buffalo, where they came back and won the game. They're on like Papa said, a 5-game winning streak. And the crazy part in those 5 games is they've averaged 32 points every game since week 7.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, is this the same Chiefs team?
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing what happens when you don't play the best teams.
And it's about your competition. Yeah, exactly. And the rest of the schedule for these guys looks easy as well. So, but we'll start out with Alex Smith. He's rolling at 5,100 this week. He's a min value play guy. Could break out, have a breakout game against Oakland. He hasn't been lighting the world on fire, but he hasn't been really disappointing people either. So,
dude, he's consistently a 20-point guy.
18 to 20.
And it fit 5.1, dude. You're almost auto at 4x salary, and I'm like, okay, please, yes.
The sexy part of the Chiefs offense has been the run game with Spencer Ware, 4,900. He had a great week last week. I hope you owned him because he was highly under-owned at a $3,800 price point and scored 23 points. But should have a repeat performance, this week against Oakland's poor 25th ranked defense. Now, Sharkandrick West is also in play here too. At 5,200, he's listed as probable for the game. But if he's a healthy go, I think Andy Reid will turn to him and say, West, you're my guy since you've been here before. Or, Reid could be sneaky here and say, Reid would say, West is my guy. But then, put Ware in there as the bell cow for the entire game to throw the game off for Oakland. So stay tuned for updates throughout the week on that one as far as the Sharkandrick West play.
Before you get to the wide receivers, though, this is my ultimate problem, and I think your analysis broke it down spot on. The true question is you don't know with this running back situation. Right. And that's my problem is they're both going to eat into each other. They're both legitimate backs. The offensive line looks good. Oakland has major problems. And I'm not sure that we're not going to see them both get roughly 15 carries and Alex Smith and the passing game fade back into oblivion because they both just look that good and they can handle. And the teams left on the schedule are teams you can run all over.
Yeah.
So it might be a situation where we resemble the early 2000 teams of the Giants with the thunder and lightning approach that they had. Both guys might actually be viable plays. They both might come in at 15-plus points a week, with ceilings, like floors at 15 and ceilings at 25 plus, depending on who gets in the end zone and how many of them get catches. But they're both good plays. That's what scares me. I kind of wish one of them was out.
Yeah, because it made it easy to pick the guy.
It really did.
They both have been undervalued since Jamal Charles went out with his season-ending knee injury. So then you got the old Jeremy Maclin at 5,200, coming off his best performance in a Chiefs jersey. He had he's got a nice matchup this week. Should see a good amount of targets again. Smith and Maclin have been starting to gel really well with each other. And they both should pay off this week at their price point. Then you've got Travis Kelce, 4,700 at the tight end position. Had an okay game with 16.9 points. Was lucky to that score with that touchdown. That basically made his day for you because he only had 4 catches for 30-some yards. But this week he's listed as probable, so he'll probably play in the game. And his matchup is in his favor with the 30th ranked defense as far as the tight ends go, Oakland. will make a nice, flex play, I think, at a $4,700 price point if you have some money left over, because he's, basically the Chiefs' number 2 wide receiving option behind Macklin. So no other real options as far as the Chiefs are concerned in this game. But I'm interested to see basically how the rest of this week plays out as far as what they say as far as the running back, because I want to be on that as far as the running back position, but I just don't know which way I'm really going to roll yet.
Yeah, the problem for me is that there are so many other running backs that are around the same price tag that I know are the only ones that are going to touch the ball. And when I knew it was that they were the only ones to touch the ball, I was all over the Chiefs running game. But right now, I think I'm going to have to go other routes. But I loved your analysis there, and that brings us to the Raiders side of the equation.
Yeah.
I know there's some goodness here.
So as far as the Oakland Raiders go, they had a hard-fought game last week on the road against Tennessee, but they escaped with a victory, 24-21. They're one of the hotter teams in the NFL as of late. Their offense is really having nice performances each week. David Carr's getting Derek Carr. David. He didn't play anymore. Derek Carr is 6,200 this week, coming off a nice 27-point day, throwing 3 touchdowns and for 330 yards. His matchup against Kansas City is good. Should put up some great numbers again this week. So, a little pricey at 6,200, but obviously he's been proving himself. Latavius Murray, on the other hand, 4,800, has done diddly poo, basically, since week 3 against at Cleveland. I'm not even wasting my time with them, and that's all I can say about that.
You'd be foolish to against the top 2 run defense in the NFL. Right?
Then we go to the brighter spot of the Oakland offense, which is the wide receivers. Starting out with Monty Cooper at 6,900. He had a nice week last week. The matchup is sweet for him again, and Michael Crabtree at 6,500. The Chiefs secondary obviously is horrible. If you watched the game last week, Sammy Watkins just basically tore them apart. But I have a feeling that it'll happen again with, Cooper and Crabtree, with this duo, the CNC Raider Factory, getting it done this week. Wow. So I definitely like some exposure to Amani Cooper and Michael Crabtree this week at home versus the Chiefs' horrible secondary.
Right on. Well, I appreciate your 90s pop culture reference with the CNC Music Factory. I think the real problem here is the Chiefs defense is going to make you sweat. Get it?
Yeah.
If you play Amari Cooper or Michael Crabtree. And the reason being is yeah, you're right, Sammy Watkins did torch us, but that was only for a half. And if you watch that first half when he was doing the torching, he had a guy on him every step of the way. He was just making immaculate catches. I mean, there was a hand in between Sammy Watkins every time he came down. This defense looks much improved, and they improved themselves at halftime. Like, Watkins didn't even receive another target. I saw 1 target the entire second half of that game. I do not want to mess with the Chiefs defense. They're toned up. They're playing well. I know they're without Houston this week, but the Raiders have been up and down, and even though they're hot, there have been 2 weeks of some pretty bad in the middle of their hotness, and I think this Chiefs defense is for real, and I don't want to.
But they always show up at home, especially during Chiefs week. So.
Yeah, maybe. Once again, multiple lineups. It might be something you want to explore. I'm for the most part. My defenses that I'm playing are the Chiefs, Broncos, and Texans this week. So I just like the Chiefs to be able to. I just don't think that they have enough. Like, when you can't run the ball, the Chiefs can bring the dogs, and they're just going to have a rough. And so far, when they've had issues, it's against teams that bring the dogs.
Yeah.
So.
Come on and sweat, baby.
Oh man!
Let the music take control.
All right, we're gonna stop you singing so we hopefully don't lose any viewers.
All right,
and we'll move on to the next game, which is Panthers at Saints. It's a 49.5 over/under. The Panthers are 7-point favorites. Yes, please is my response here. I don't know how the Panthers are only 7-point favorites against the Saints team that not only can't stop anybody, but can't score at that. Cam is 7,400 and is a monster and should even pay off the high price tag against this terrible Saints team. All Panthers are in play. I'll repeat, all Panthers are in play. Jay Stu should be a lock for hitting his value this week because the Saints are so bad against the run. At 5,300, I think it's easy for him to more than exceed value, regardless of how the game flow goes. The winning GPP lineups might be the ones that guess this week on which wide receiver is going to go ham, whether it's Funchess at $3,700 or Ginn at 36. Keep in mind, Ginn is coming off a 0-point performance where he only saw one target last week. That'll keep his ownership percentage way low. But let's not fool anybody, guys. If you're picking Funchess or Ginn, you are straight guessing.
Right.
And I have no problem with that because it might win you a tournament. But just don't be that guy. You just know you're guessing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I almost forgot about Olsen at 6,400, who's only the top-ranked tight end on the board against the Saints. Terrible defense against tight ends. Guys, odds are the Panthers stack is the way to go to get you a great start. There's tons of value. You can even stack. You can even roll Cam by himself and play plenty of sexy wide receiver targets, buy some value running backs, some value tight ends. Just a lot of easy builds.
Little Cam nakedness.
Little Cam nakedness. I don't want to focus on the nakedness. I'll let him roll solo. Anything else to add on the Saints side? I mean, on the Panthers side, bro.
No, I definitely love the Panthers this week going against that putrid New Orleans team.
Yeah.
I would do what you can to basically get as many of the players that you can. Just the main guys. I would mainly focus just on Newton, Stewart, and Olsen.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. And like I said, if you really got cojones, try to guess.
Because the other ones are possible question mark.
Right. On the Saints side of the ball, guys, I'm not even going to crap with you. I didn't write down anybody's stats, anybody's prices. I think it's the easiest fade in the world.
Yeah.
I don't have any interest owning a complete Saint until they prove me different. If you think you can guess who can produce in this offense, be my guest. The only possible option you have here is Breeze naked style, but he's the third highest. He's the third most expensive quarterback, and he's in statistically the worst matchup.
Yeah.
That makes absolutely no sense. He's not performed anywhere near the third level quarterback price tag. I mean, dude, you're getting the undefeated Panthers of that amazing defense. They were a little weak against the run early in the season, but that was before everybody got healthy. I guess if you want to make the Ingram play, be my guest, but it won't be me. There's way better running backs and way better spots.
I think as far as Drew Brees, he's going to be determined and pissed off about his performance last week with not having one single touchdown.
I mean, you could have said that about other multiple weeks in the season, bro.
I mean, it's one of those where, he's a hard worker, but for my money, I can't play that because it's going to be an anomaly if he blows up for 50 or 40 or whatever.
Right.
So it's just not going to happen.
No, and if it does, congratulations, you
deserve the money.
You straight guessed and got right.
Yeah.
All right. Next game up is Lear's Broncos at the Chargers. He is just living in the AFC West on big house this week. It's a 43.5 over/under. Denver's currently favored by 4. How does this look with Osweiler at the helm, sir?
So coming off a nice home victory against the old New England Patriots and breaking their winless streak.
Yeah, it kind of hurts us in the division race, but whatever. We'll let it roll.
We're talking about it. Brock Osweiler, 5,200. We'll get to start again this week. He has not scored more than 20 points since he's been starting it as the starter. So he's pretty much a no play for me until I know he's at min value if it's 200. But I'm not going to take that chance. Then you got the confusion, which is the running back core of Ronnie Hillman at 4,500. Had 60 yards and 1 touchdown last week, while C.J. Anderson, $3,500 this week, is coming off his best game of the season, and what most fantasy people or touts were expecting from him all year long, with 34.3 points. Nice game, Mr. Anderson. Hillman and Anderson will split carries. I think this week with Hillman, he got 14 carries, and Anderson took 15 carries last week. So I think they're definitely going to be the same 15 and 15 somewhere in there. Plus, they are going against the 31st ranked rush defense. So that could be a little bit of a sweet pot for you if you want to choose which one you think is going to blow up. But take your stabs at that. As far as the wide receivers, you got Demaryius Thomas at 7,200. Had a horrible day with only one catch, and he dropped a ton of balls last week. Now, the weather obviously was a factor in that too, but he's just too expensive for me to risk that again this week. Then you got Emmanuel Sanders at 6,500. He had a nice 20-point week with 6 catches for 113 yards. He should probably get the same amount of targets as he did last week, but still a little bit too expensive for his 6,500 point performance if he gets the same again this week, because I don't really look him to go ham against San Diego. I look for them to run the ball mostly in this game. So no other players are worth really looking at as far as Denver side of this, but my intuition is telling me that Denver is going to run all over San Diego because of their horrible run defense, and we got Osweiler in the back.
Fair enough. Here's where you and I are going to disagree with a little bit, and I think it's because like my vision of what Kubiak's offense looks like. Look, with Osweiler at the helm, they're finally able to run Kubiak's offense, the bootleg, the way he wants to. We know the Chargers' defense is epically bad, like in contention for one of the bottom 3 in the league.
Right.
With those two things being said, Kubiak's offensive design, the bootleg play action, really takes advantage of defenses that are awful. And we haven't got to see what that offense can do against a terrible defense yet with these weapons. And here's what I think will happen. You're right. They're going to be able to run all over them. The second Osweiler goes for a play action pass, Demaryius and Emmanuel Sanders are going to have all day to take that up the field and have touchdowns. They could easily have a monster performance. He's only 5,300, right, at quarterback, or 52, Osweiler.
Yeah.
So, like, there's the ability to pair those guys together and even do an Osweiler stack and hope that this is the coming out party of Kubiak's offense. Now, remember, when Kubiak was in Houston, we saw several of these huge outpourings of games when they played teams that were terrible, especially terrible against the run. Because what happens is they start pulling more and more people into the box, and all you have to do is that play action little bootleg, and one of your receivers is streaming all the way down the field. And I think that there's some fantasy goodness here on all sides of the ball. And to me, it's just easier to guess that the game flow will open that up than it is to guess on which running back's going to go ham.
But as far as that goes, man, I would not put Arian Foster even remotely area as C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman. Like, he is way out of their field.
Fair enough. He is a legit talented running back, but we've only seen C.J. Anderson and Hillman running in a system that's with a quarterback that's not designed for that system, which was throwing everything off. Like, this offense is actually.
But Kubiak, obviously gets his very named quarterbacks with Matt Schaub and Brock Osweiler.
He's had some terrible ones over the years, but maybe this will be the coming out party.
Who knows?
Yeah. So what did the Chargers side look like here?
As far as the Chargers go, the Chargers decided not to totally give up on the season last week and decided to show up and have a nice day against Jacksonville, which I guess if you decide to play Jacksonville, that you can actually win against Jacksonville. Phillip Rivers, 6,600, had some really good games this year. And as far as the Chargers go, the Denver's defense is going to shut him down. I mean, the Denver defense is number 1 in the NFL, and I know DeMarcus Ware still might be out, but it doesn't even matter. But pick your poison with the running back situation with Melvin Gordon at 3,400, who gets a lot of attempts but no yards or touchdowns. Danny Woodhead, who gets no attempts, minimal yards, but catches a lot of balls at 4,800. But my stance is, Woodhead has the higher ceiling here as far as the running backs are concerned. But then you also got Antonio Gates, 4,900, has always been one of Rivers' favorite targets. So look for him to get some production. He scored 21.3 points last week with 2 TDs, but he only had 4 catches, so it's not like he tore the world up on fire. He
14 of the 21 was from
red zone threat. So
yeah, whatever.
But then you got Malcolm Floyd, who's coming in. He's probable for the game, coming back off injury. Then you got Stevie Johnson, 4,500. Should, also see a lot of targets with the wide receiver injuries. He had a decent game last week, 7 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown. So with a 22.2 points. So,
Aqib Talib's going to be on them half the game.
Yeah.
Like one of them, at least, if not both of them. Like one of them all game or both
and
of them
Harris
half
is
the
good
game.
too. So
Yeah, no, there's just no way. You're chasing points to play Chargers players,
Yeah.
and this is not.
well, I just see
this
Philip
game matchup.
Rivers scrambling around the whole
Mhm.
time trying to find people.
I see a lot of crying.
And then you got Dontrell Inman at 32, and he had a decent week as well last week at a 17.5.
Yeah.
So if I were to choose any of those targets, which most of them I will not, but I would take Gates for all the dump offs that Philip Rivers is going to have to do while he's on the run.
Fair enough. I just don't want to guess, and I don't want to take the bad side against the best defense in the NFL right
Yeah.
now. That's where I stand on that.
Sure.
But I understand why people want that. But here's my thing: if the Chargers can do anything remotely in game flow wise, and I'm wrong about the Broncos D, then the offense of the Broncos should more than make up for it points wise. So
Yeah.
like the few lineups I have playing the one lineup right now that I have playing Broncos players is because I'm going after the passing offense there.
Sure.
So excuse me, that brings us into the Sunday night football game. And we'll quick hit the Monday Night Football game because, once again, it's a dumpster fire. So the Sunday Night Football game is actually some legitimate action. It is the defense optional bowl of the Colts at the Steelers. The spread is Pitt by 7. There is no over-under. It has been pulled because of injuries. Roethlisberger was only cleared today. But we'll get to him in just a second. Let's start off with this awesome Sunday Night Football slate with the Colts. I hate to say it, y'all, but Old Balls Hasselbeck is actually a competent fantasy quarterback. At 5,300, he put up 23 last week, and the Steelers got torched by Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin last week. The secondary is giving up points almost as much as the Falcons, as the Saints secondary is. So feel free to target even Old Balls Hasselbeck to have at least a 23-point performance. He could easily drop a 30 burger as bad as this team is, especially if they're going pace for pace.
Right.
And 5,300 is just sexy in a shootout scenario. The likes of T.Y. Hilton at 5,700, who put up 27.5 fantasy points last week, and Dante Moncrief at 4,600, who put up 22 last week, should have a nice fantasy performance here, as there's just nobody in Pittsburgh that likes to cover anyone.
Yeah.
And they just kind of watch people run by them and catch the ball. It's really odd because that defense was so good for so many years. But guys, trust me on this. Target the Steelers defense. Don't chase the Seahawks offense. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
The Seahawks offense?
From last week against the Steelers. Yeah. All right. Do you have anything to add on the Colts side of the ball? Do you want any of the running backs?
No, I have no desire to be a part of the running game. I definitely love me some T.Y. Hilton this week and some few sneaky Moncrief plays too.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I don't even break down the running backs here, guys, is the Steelers are a top 5 defense against the run. Part of that is because their secondary is so bad that there's just no need to run the ball on them. But I think that transitions us well into the Steelers offense, where Roethlisberger is or maybe isn't concussed. Who cares? Basically, he's been medically cleared. We know he can practice and play. And at 6,600, he's a sexy buy. And you compare him with one of his sexy targets, whether or not you want to go expensive, middle range, or cheap. You have all 3 options here. Antonio Brown at 8,600 is my favorite option, and I really like him to bounce back and drop a monster after his 8-point performance against Richard Sherman. Look, he doesn't have to deal with an elite corner. Actually, he gets a guy that was probably sacking groceries a few weeks ago. Antonio Brown should drop a 40 burger in this game without even a second thought.
Yeah, batting an eye, yeah.
And I just love that play at 8,600. He's too cheap, in all honesty. Martavis Bryant at 5,600 should have seen the majority of the workload that wasn't going Antonio Brown's way, but it actually went to Wheaton last week at 3,600. I doubt Wheaton will roll it back at the 3,600, but what people will do is be jumping all over Wheaton trying to chase that 40 burger. I think you can easily avoid it and try not to save money there and buy Martavis Bryant at 5,600 if you don't want to spend the money on Antonio Brown. and it'll be super sneaky. Bryant, even though he put up a 20 last week, will probably
very
be only
consistent.
Right, he'll probably only be like 5%. You'll probably get him sub 5% owned.
Yeah.
Whereas Wheaton may be 15, 20% owned with people trying to chase the value at that 3,600. Yeah,
for sure.
So that's the way I break down that game, and I basically, I'll be honest with you, I've already started off a couple of lineups where I'm starting off Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown stacks, and that's my starting point. I really feel comfortable with that against this Colts team, especially on Sunday Night Football.
No D-Well?
Dude, thank you for. I actually forgot. D-Will is one of my favorite plays of the week, dude. He's still criminally underpriced on DraftKings, and dude, he fits really nicely into the lineup. You have the ability to you have the ability to save up at running back everywhere, but he's only 5,600. You have so many other guys that are way priced above him, and it's just not hard to get him and even AP at 6,600 into a lineup. And I have those guys ranked as literally 1 and 2 on my board this week for running backs. So.
I love me some D'Angelo Williams this week, so but I won't go too much more into it because he's one of my picks. So.
There you go. All right. So with that said and done, I know you had to hear from us a little bit longer than normal on the game breakdown, but that's because Murr was busy tonight and couldn't make it. So we hope everything worked out for you, brother. With that said, it's time to transition into the sneaky value play the segment of the show. I'll go second. We'll go ahead and let Lear lead us off. Lear, who's your sneaky value play / bargain bin guy of the week?
Well, I'm going to roll with Scott Chandler.
Nice.
Chandler's 2,500. Will be getting the start in place of Gronk, I think, for sure. He's starting at tight end in a high-powered offense at a min-value price. I mean, you can never go wrong with picking a guy of that situation. He came in last week after Gronk went out with 5 catches for 58 yards and a touchdown. He surely will get his lion's share of targets, especially with the other wide receiver issues going on in New England. And he is just such a good play. I anticipate his ownership will be really high. But for me, it's one of those that a lot of the touts are going to be talking about him this week. But it's just something that pops out on paper to you, and I think he's going to have a great week.
I really like this play for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's min-val, so like you're getting a free play essentially. The other reason is, as many touts as I've heard talk about him being a play, I've also heard people just say that you have to fade Patriots this week altogether. They're saying, a lot of people are saying the loss of Gronk means that this team won't be able to do anything offensively, which I think shows little faith in Belichick and Brady. And I'm one of the people that didn't have faith in Brady at all as a quarterback. Like, I've given him crap over what he's been able to do with this makeshift line and losing all his weapons. And like year after year after year, the man is a genius at quarterback, whether it's system or not.
Yeah,
like
he makes people play.
He will find the games, and we've seen Chandler have big games before. When he was with Buffalo, he just never saw the consistency to have those big games.
Quarterback.
Right. At $2,500, there are way worse places you can spend money than to lock down Chandler at tight end. I love it.
And they're going against the Eagles, who have been horrible, and they're at home in New England. So I think all the signs point to Chandler having a good game.
A sneaky play might be Brady pairing him with LaFell and Chandler, and you might be on an island by yourself with that 3, like just starting there. In a smaller size.
The problem with Brady, though, is he's way too expensive at $8,000.
Oh, absolutely. That's the problem. But that's what will also keep his ownership percentage down. But moving on to my sneaky / value play is David Johnson, the backup for the Arizona Cardinals at 3,400. With injuries to both CJ2K and to Ellington, Ellington's also not expected to even suit up this week. He's expected to see the entire workload at running back. Add that to the interior part of the Rams defense is banged up. He makes a great value / sneaky player for me. And we've seen how valuable these running backs are. With all the wide receiver weapons, you can't stack 8 in the box against this Cardinals team. And so the running backs just have, when they hit the right hole, it's there, and it's there all day. And he's actually way faster than CJ2K looked this year. At least that's how he's looked in the past. And I even think he has better cut and vision than what I've seen Ellington do. I think that they had 2 good guys that were performing while he was injured earlier in the season, so he never got the chance. This is his chance. $3,400 for starting running back that should see 20 touches. Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically Spencer Ware of last week. You know, here's the thing with this. I'm going to be 50-50 on playing him.
Okay.
The reason why I would love to play him is because, yes, he's going to get all the carries. Reason why I don't want to play him is because St. Louis really does pretty well at home against running backs. But, like you said, there is some injuries going on the defensive line. So I think that will increase his points, fantasy points that he's going to get when it comes to Sunday and playing in St. Louis. But, on the other hand, I don't think he's going to have a huge game when it comes to the ownership percentage of people owning him, because I think a lot of people will say, oh, St. Louis has a good defense, so they might stay off of him. So that might get you on an island.
If you can get 80 yards and a touch out of the guy, you've hit 5x value, right? Like, I just love a scenario where that's all I have to get from a guy to more than pay off. And what it allows me to do is, especially if I put him in a lineup with I can put him, AP, Chandler, and then I can pick whatever wide receivers I want.
You can go to the three big boys.
Yes, you really can. And I've actually done that on a lineup.
Same here.
So with that said, who are you paid up for production this week, Lear?
My paying up for production guy this week is Mr. Alshon Jeffrey of the Chicago Bears. He is coming out this week at $6,900. Is primed to have a good week to blow up against that horrible San Francisco 28th ranked pass defense at home in Chicago. This should easily be a 25-point game for Jeffrey with at least one, if not two touchdowns this week. And he's currently averaging 20.8 points every game that he plays. So he should definitely be on most of your lineups this week. His cost is still under $7,000, which is a bargain for a number one stud wide receiver in Mr. Jeffrey. And, Cutler is going to be looking for him, especially, too, if Martellus Bennett is out again this week.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think what happened to the Cardinals last week was an anomaly against the San Francisco team. If you looked at multiple red zone targets, like penalties cost them touchdowns last week. Just weird things happened in that game. Did not let the Cardinals just amass major points against this Niners team. Everybody's amassing yardage at will. It doesn't matter. They're so bad against the run and the pass. Both the running backs and the wide receivers and the quarterbacks always get theirs. Yeah. I love the play, dude. I think I have no problem paying up for Alshon Jeffrey this week. The only problem I have is with all the value is you can buy the other pieces that are a little bit more expensive, and it doesn't harm you. And that's where I'm having problems, is choosing between these guys. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit on my pay up for production. Because unfortunately, it may be Julio Jones, but I've already talked about him a little bit. We've already talked about Odell and how we think he can drop a monster at his $8,900 price tag. I truly believe he'll roll it back. I've already talked a little bit about Antonio Brown at $8,700 and how I think he'll have a monster bounce back week. DeAndre Hopkins is also in a prime position with the bounce back matchup this week. AJ Green. The real thing here is people might say I'm skating by not giving you one guy to pay up for production. But what I am going to give you here is I'm going to tell you, with this week, with all the value out there, you have to own one of these guys. I will guarantee it. I don't guarantee a whole lot in daily fantasy, but I'm going to guarantee one of these guys you're going to have to own to win a tournament. And to be honest, with all the value out there, you may have to own two of them. Yeah. And there aren't a lot of places that will tell you that, or be honest and break down the salary in that way. I feel like it's way better for me to do that and label out the four of them. And I'll even include Alshon Jeffrey in that group. Add him into the mix, and it's way easier to throw those guys into the mix and just say you might need at least two of them, and they're all in prime matchups, than to just guess and be a blowhard about, like, I don't have a crystal ball, guys, but one of those guys is going to go off. Yeah. It's guaranteed.
Well, I mean, you got AJ Green going against Cleveland, who's horrible at Cleveland. You got DeAndre Hopkins, who's going against Buffalo on the road. Buffalo just surrendered a huge career game to Jeremy Maclin last week. It's just, and then you've got Pittsburgh at Indianapolis, which is huge for all the wide receivers there.
And so 3 of the 5 are coming off of their worst performances of the season.
Yeah, especially Hopkins.
Right. So they should easily bounce back, right? It's just, I think that's the route you're going to have to go this
Yeah.
week. And I wanted to be honest and have an honest discussion. To me, that's way more important than giving you guys like the main guy that I feel like my gut telling me about.
Yeah.
But let's go now to the over-owned, under-owned segment. We'll start off with over-owned. Lear, who do you have for being over-owned this week? And does it matter?
So for me, I have D'Angelo Williams as my over-owned guy. He's 5,600, which is really good price for an awesome running back starter. Williams is coming off a nice week against Seattle with a 24.7 point performance, with most of that coming in the air. So it's really going to depend on, too, if it's going to be Landry Jones or Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, they've already said Roethlisberger's cleared, and we'll start.
So I'm definitely all in on the D Will play. And he's got a sweet matchup against Indy at home as far as, at Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
He's primed to deliver again. Most players will see this play. He was minimally owned last week at roughly 5%, going against Seattle, and he blew up there. So I think a lot of people will look at his price point, but then also, too, with the matchup and say, I got to be on this guy. So I look for him to be more towards like the 30 to 35% owned rate in GPPs, but that's not going to scare me because he's going to be in some of my lineups.
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to be that high owned. I think that there's some value that's keeping it off, and the fact that AP is only $1,000 more expensive, right? I think that's helping diversify the ownership percentage there. But I do think you're not going to get him sub 5 like you did last week. And but I agree with you. Regardless of what his ownership percentage in that matchup, I've got to have him at that price tag. And I think the same's true for my over-owned guy this week, and that's Cam Newton at 7,400. I think he's clearly going to be the number one owned quarterback, even though you have to pay up for him. But, guys, he's been a consistent 30-plus point a week guy every week out, aside from that little anomaly there on Thanksgiving. But that's what happens when your defense has multiple touchdowns and you don't have to do anything.
Right.
And
the matchup is just too goodness.
Well, right. And here's the thing, dude. If he gets the ability to get a rushing touchdown, like you saw for that variance, even of the 2 defensive touchdowns, right? He still had a 21-point day or like a 17-point day. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't going to destroy you. But everybody's going to be on Cam in this matchup. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think that doesn't matter. You want to have him against the Saints. There's a potential for him to drop his 50 burger again, especially against this team. Like, division rival, set the tone. Like, I'm the best quarterback in the division, not you, Brees. Like, I see this going down all sorts of ugly, and I don't care. The whole world can own him. I will definitely have multiple lineups of Cam Newton in it this week.
So you'll be exposed to Cam Newton?
I will expose myself thoroughly to Cam Newton. Yeah, that was a gem for all you out there. All right, so here, who's your under-owned guy this week?
My under-owned guy is kind of a sneaky guy that you're going to have to look through. You probably have to type his name into the search bar because you're not going to probably look for him. But I talked a tad bit about him earlier, but Will Tye, tight end for New York.
Or if you'd just listened to me about 5 weeks ago when I said
you did mention some Tye. I remember that. But he had a great week last week being a min-value guy with 6 catches for 74 yards. The New York Jets will be all over ODB trying to stop him. Look for Tye to be, the dump-down guy for Manning if Manning can keep on his feet. Or not throw the ball into the secondary hands for the New York Jets. New York Jets are ranked 2nd in the league against the tight end, but this does not scare me. So this should make him an under-owned guy as well. I like Tye, what he's doing, and by rostering him, it gives you so many more options, too, for the rest of your team, like we were talking about earlier. Because one of my teams, I did like a Chandler tight end, Will Tye flex, and it gave me – I got and then I think I also got Antonio Brown.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that might be putting it a little too much out there for some people's likings, but it definitely is one of those that if they both show up, you definitely have the ability to win a tournament because you're in a unique salary position that no one else is in.
Right.
And I like it for that. I mean, you're getting 2 guys for $5,000, which is less than the average of players on the side. So, anytime you
and
can
guys that have potential
to drop 20-plus point games. Yeah. Blow up. Yeah. My under-owned guy this week is Adrian Peterson at 6,600. Some people will say that he won't be under-owned because people will be chasing his monster game last week. I don't think they will be, and the reason why is because there's that giant red number next to him. Now, granted, it went from number 1 down to number 4 of Seattle's defense off the last. that number's a joke. I don't know why it's so high to begin with. Like we've been over this multiple times. Jay Stu had his best performance of the year in Seattle. Like his last performance from D. Will was in Seattle.
Right.
Like now they're on the road, and there's just no chance to me that AP doesn't just eviscerate them and have a monster. I think that people, whether it's they hate AP from what happened last year and he got kicked out or what, his ownership percentage just isn't where it was in cake matchups, much less on a red numbered matchup. I think his ownership percentage will stay sub 25%, and as long as that happens, or as long as they keep his price down, even if his ownership was 50%, at $6,600 for that type of running back, you've got to buy him all day.
You do.
So until his price comes up or his ownership percentage comes up to where it scares you off of him, play AP all day. See what I did there too? Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's be honest here. 3 out of his last 4 games, he scored 25 points, 32 points, and 35 points. 3 out of the last 4.
Right. And the one in between's of what?
13.
13. So. Yeah.
So I mean, and okay, out of those 4 weeks, he was 7,300, 7,100, 6,800, 6,300. This is the cheapest 6,600 that he's been in the last 4 weeks.
Somehow your price goes down after a monster.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's them thinking the Seahawks defense is something that is
play AP, kids.
All right. With that said, I'm smelling something rank, Lear. It smells like a dumpster fire. No, it's not you. It smells like a dumpster fire. Who's your dumpster fire garbage pick of the week, sir?
My dumpster fire player this week is a guy that went off and hammed against my Chiefs last week, but I'm rolling with old Sammy Watkins. $5,600 for Sammy this week. He had a monster game against the Chiefs, scoring 36.8 points last week. This week he's playing at home against the Texans, whose defense just shut down Drew Brees and the Saints for 0 touchdowns in the whole entire game. He will be probably a high percentage owned guy because people will be chasing his big game that he had last week. And Texans have been coming on, and I'm sorry, but I think Watkins is going to lay an egg this weekend. So stay off Watkins, kid.
I agree with you, and I'm going to give a bonus. I don't hardly ever do this. Play the Texans defense. That defense hasn't given up more than 6 points in 3 straight games.
Yeah.
Like, that defense has gotten for real. I think they've thrown away Romeo Crennel's playbook, and it looks like they're letting J.J. Watt and that defense do what they're supposed to do.
Instinctively.
Go after quarterbacks instead of play this read-react crap that Crennel likes to do.
Yeah.
And they've vastly improved. Wow is all I have to say about this defense, and I want to target no one against them. That's how impressed I've been with this defense.
Yeah.
My dumpster fire this week is one danger, Russell Wilson. You will be the one in danger if you roster him this week. At $5,600, I know he's cheap. I know he just won people tournaments. I know he just put up monster with his 30-plus point performance. But the Vikings actually play defense, unlike the Pittsburgh Steelers. Avoid him, and just for a bonus for all of you that like when I give you a little bit extra here, also avoid Doug Baldwin. If you expect either one of those guys to drop their monsters back at you, I think you're going to be epically disappointed. Yeah. And especially with Graham out, they're able to target more on the wides. They'll be able to stop the run easier. And that Vikings team isn't a team I want to mess around with. They look for real, and they're playing for a division. So I am easily fading that. Anything to add there, or do you like the Seahawks?
Maybe just a couple Dirty Rawls plays, but other than that.
Yeah. All right. Now it's time for the quick hits, guys. We'll go through these games really quick, just giving you the plays that we can think of off the top here. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but we'll start off with the Texans at the Bills. It's a 41.5. Buffalo is currently favored by 3 points at home. The Texans in play, we've pretty much already been over it.
Yeah.
Like Hoyer, we like DeAndre. You can go with, if you wanted to, you can guess with Cecil Shorts or Washington. They both seem to be pedestrian at best. You could also go Alfred Blue here, but I'm not interested in the running back against the Bills' running defense, even though the Chiefs just had their way with them.
Yeah.
It's just not a play. Blue's not flashy enough for me. On the Bills' side, fade all.
Yeah, I'm not on any of them.
All right, next to the, which is tragic because I do like me some Tyrod, just not
Yeah.
against stellar defenses.
Yeah.
All right, on to the Ravens at the Dolphins. It's 43.5 over under. Miami is currently a 4-point favorite. As far as the Ravens go, Javorius Allen has been a nice addition, running back wise. Put up 18 plus points last week. Looks to catch the ball. Looks to be well integrated in that offense. I like him a lot. Akins also came on as a wide receiver. As a wide receiving option, once
Mid-val
again,
guy.
yeah. I mean, dude, they're way too cheap to like not have. If you need plug and plays of value, there you go. As far as the Dolphins, this is where things get interesting. That Dolphins team is weird to say the least. I don't know how to evaluate it. 1 week they're complete dumpster fire. The next week they come out and Jarvis Landry has 4 touchdowns, like 3 touchdowns and 20 yards and drops a 30 burger.
Yeah.
I don't know how to judge this team. If they're going to pop, it should be against the Ravens. Landry should be a play here, along with who else would be a play here? Lear, anybody that you can think of?
Maybe a few Lamar Millers,
Yeah.
if you want to get dangerous. But Ravens, obviously they're just not the same team that they once were. So I'm definitely going to be playing some Landry, even though he's still got that questionable, sticker on him. But he had that last week and just blew up, and I didn't get on him because of that reason. So
Yeah.
not going to let it happen to me again. So.
Bengals at Browns 43.5. Cincinnati's currently favored by 9, which means they should blow the Browns out of the building. The Browns will not have McCown. It is Austin Davis that will be their quarterback this week.
Did they officially come out and say that?
Oh yeah. Johnny Manziel's still riding the pine. As far as the Browns,
still in the dog house.
yeah. I see what you did there. As far as the Browns go, dude, it honestly takes me off of some of the Browns plays I liked. I was liking rolling the Barnyard Dog, and I was actually like rolling Benjamin. I'm not sure I can do that with Davis, although he did look good in his limited action at the end of the game.
Yeah.
It might be a contrarian play. It might be a good play. The Bengals defense, though, can be for real.
Yep.
Like, it just depends on when they show up. But other teams have blown them out.
Cincinnati should just blow the doors off of the Cleveland Browns this weekend. But sometimes, as we know, Old Red Rifle likes to play down to his competition. So, I might be rolling a few Giovanni Bernards here and there. He's at a good price. But other than that,
there's definitely a part of me,
AJ Green.
Yeah, there's definitely a part of me, though, that wants to stack Dalton, AJ Green, and possibly even Eifert. Although Eifert's way too expensive for what he is, he doesn't seem to be consistent enough, and there's just way better tight end options that I like over Eifert this week. Next on to the 49ers at Bears. It's 43 over under. Chicago's a home favorite by 7 points over the Niners. I think this is an easy game for the Bears. We've already talked about Alshon. You can guess easily between either Forte or Langford. Both of them might even have 20-point days. They both might get theirs. The Niners are just that bad. Yeah. Also, Miller's in play here, tied in, especially if the Black Unicorns ruled out once again. And to be honest, Cutler makes an interesting contrarian quarterback here. Quarterback play here. I really like that game. Kind of wish we would have talked about it more in depth. Anything else you see there? Oh, and the Niners, as always, the man Sean Jones once again doesn't let you down for his price tag. For his price tag, he's a good 14 and 15-point week guy. You got the Jags at the Titans. It's a 43 over and under. The Titans are currently 2.5-point favorites, which means they don't even get the full 3-point home field advantage bump, which basically means to pick them.
Two horrible teams playing each other.
Usually means fantasy goodness.
Yeah.
I love the Jags. Brodels all year has been my bro. He has never let us down, except once, and last week he even got to his point line. I love the Jags weapons. Hearns, Robinson. Don't forget the tight end one, Julius Thomas, who I told you about last week. He blew up. He gave you a good performance. I see more in the likes against the Tennessee Titans secondary. That's still banged up. Watch out though, because if they do get healthy, they do significantly get better against the pass. But right now they're injured, and I wouldn't worry about it. On the Titan side, Mariota is a nice source of fantasy
I like
goodness.
Some Mariota this week.
I also love pairing him with Delaney Walker, who is clearly the number 2 tight end in all of football, but nobody seems to
give him any love,
appreciate or understand that he is. And Well, he might. I say he and Olsen are tied for 2 outside of Gronk.
Yeah.
When Gronk's healthy, but now Gronk's down. He's clearly the number 2, if not the number 1. And his ownership percentages are never higher than 13%, which is crazy to me for that elite of a tight end, and especially when he's always underpriced. I also like pairing the receiver who's back this week. Why am I blanking on his name right now while we're filming for the Titans? Kendall Wright.
Kendall Wright, yeah.
Yeah, should have he had a decent performance last week. Should expect to see more targets and more production. Anything else you can think of out of that for the Titans or Jags?
No.
Basically, they're all in play according to me, other than the running backs on both sides. Dude, keep fading TJ Yeldon and keep fading whatever running back situation is in Tennessee. Whew, we're almost done, kids. As for Seattle at the Vikings, it's a 41.5. It's listed as a pick'em. Yeah, I never want to see a game listed as a pick'em on a team coming off a 5-touchdown performance. I'm sorry. That just tells you that Vegas thinks that the Seahawks are fluky.
Yeah.
It tells you that Vegas thinks the Vikings are for real. AP's the target I want here. I might even think a Vikings defensive play would be interesting. You'd probably be on an island. Seahawks fade is just super take for me on any different opinions there?
Like I said earlier, I would definitely play some. I'm going to dip into some Rawls because of the value as far as his price. But I see them, relying heavily on him. I
understand where there's at. I think there's better value plays. I think we've talked about some of them. If you want to go that route, don't shy away from it. But yeah,
as far as
check out some of the other value plays.
Yeah, the Vikings side, I'm definitely all over AP. Stephon Diggs, I just don't know what to think about this guy. Like, I want to play him, but on the other hand, he hasn't come through lately.
He's a rookie wideout, dude.
Yeah.
He's up and down. Like, we've seen it with all the rookies this year. They're kind of hard to predict.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to buy him, he's still cheap, so have fun with that. Like, hopefully he shows up. But in order for him to show up, the other offense has to show up. And as good as the Vikings defense has been, that hasn't been the case for the most part. And unlike earlier in the season where you've seen his high workload. Plus, they figured out the run game with AP that they weren't when he was having those monsters earlier in the season. All right, now the next game is Cards at Rams, 43.5. Zona is favored by 5. I usually love playing the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not sure I want to play a lot of them at home against the Rams, but that Rams defense is injured and has been giving up points even at home, which makes the Cardinals play sexy, especially the running back, as I said earlier. That's why he's my sneaky play. Johnson's where it's at, and don't play CJ2K. He's broken on IR. Play the right Johnson.
Don't make that mistake.
And as far as St. Louis Rams go, I don't think you could pay me to play one of them. I love Gurley, but dude,
he's too expensive.
He's too expensive, but dude, Gurley's been crapping on people.
And he hasn't shown up lately.
Without a quarterback, even he can't show up.
Yeah, properly. And the Rams just basically have fallen apart since Jeff Fisher's decided to tinkle with the quarterback position there.
Yeah, this whole thing is just a mess.
I don't know, but I'm staying away from all St. Louis, and I don't know. I have this deep sinking feeling like Arizona, how good they are. They're just going to go into St. Louis and roll.
I mean, it very well could happen. Cardinals D is also one of those D's that's in play.
Yeah.
They're just too expensive on a lot of sites, including DraftKings.
Yeah.
That leaves us to the final game, which, sorry, we've got 2 games left. Sorry, guys. Eagles at Pats. It's 49 over under. Pats are by 9.5 point favorites. That just tells you that Vegas really hates the Eagles, as you should too for fantasy purposes. I don't understand who to play anymore out of that Eagles team. They epically let us down
every week.
Every week. Anytime you try to get a piece of them, you're going to be disappointed. The Pats. We've talked about the value plays for the Patriots already, and the plays that make it interesting. Brady's just too expensive. They should easily win this game. If you can find a way to put the Patriots stack together, feel free to go ahead and do it. If you want to guess on the running game between Bold and Blunt or White.
That's what I just was going to ask, is what you thought about that, because, I mean, I don't know what to think. I mean, it might as well just.
I thought it was going to be White last week, and it was Blunt.
Yes.
It's almost like we're back into Bill Belichick doing you dirty on the running back.
Guy again. So I'm not even going to mess with that. So with
better matchups on the board, I'm just going to leave the Patriots run game out of the equation.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, that's what we're left with. The last game of the night, the Monday Night Football game. What I have being a just crap fest that I don't have much interest in. Probably, because, but what's funny is these two teams are still playing for a division title.
Right.
The
Below
Cowboys,
500.
the Cowboys at the Washington racist name team, and the racist name team is a 4-point favorite with an over/under of 42 points. I don't know how these teams score 42 points. Like, the Cowboys' defense is fairly decent. Washington's run defense shows up occasionally, and pass defense just doesn't really exist for the most part. Des Bryant should have a decent day, but he doesn't have his quarterback.
Yeah, I can't believe in him.
Yeah, that's why I don't like this game, dude. Like, the other thing is like, you can always do the dirty Cousins at home. Cousins is a beast at home. I don't mind that play, but like I said, the Cowboys have been a little decent against the secondary.
And for some reason, Deshaun Jackson likes to stick it to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So that might be a dirty combo play with the Cousins.
Yeah, it might be interesting. I think your best bet, in all likelihood, is if you really want a piece of this game, Cousins, Reed, and leave everything else alone.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. And you got anything else to add there? Like,
maybe, Darren McFadden, what have you been doing, buddy? A lot of people have been picking you, and you've been letting us down. You're the only stable running back there with a not so stable quarterback.
I'm gonna
do your job.
I'm gonna get McFadden's back once because he's not broken, so I can't rag on him for that. I think the problem with him and this team this year has been the lack of consistency at the quarterback position. And we've seen in other situations, i.e. Gurley, how important that is for running backs to get going. And when you just don't have consistency at the quarterback position, defenses aren't afraid to put 8, 9 in the box.
Up in there.
And no matter what your talent level is, and no matter how good the offensive line, when they're outnumbered like that, you're just not going to get any yardage. And I think that's what's happened to McFadden, especially once they committed to handing him the ball a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that wraps up the show, guys. That gets us through the quick hit. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully we got you all the information you need. And remember to like, share, favorite, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also do that on Facebook, Twitter for us as well. Helps us out and helps get the show out there for all you to watch. Like we always say, if we're not making any money, we hope it's you, but really we hope it's us.
Yeah, especially the week before we're heading out next week to California for our
Fantasy Aces Live final. Yeah. We get to go see that. We get to go compete in that next weekend. We will be doing a show next week before we go out to the Fantasy Aces Live final. And we're going to even do some special videos from the Fantasy Aces Live final if we can get them in. We're going to shoot with some of the top players in the world and try to get some interviews for you guys. Just let you know how they think. If you have any questions that you want us to ask some of these players that have qualified to the live final with us, please feel free to submit those questions via Twitter, Facebook, or the webpage.
FantasyDonks.com.
Or even YouTube. And we'll definitely ask some of the better players questions about roster construction, salary, what have you. Have a great one, guys. Thanks for tuning in as always, and peace out.
Have a great weekend, everybody.